It's FoosTalk Live.
You talking to me?
Compelling and lively banter.
Are you going to talk to us?
Talking foosball.
Foosball was how I measured my value as a man. You took that away.
Players and fans, promoters and pros. Unedited and raw.
Talk.
Living in the moment.
We have a lot of important things to talk about.
All while practicing social distancing.
Cool. We'll talk. No big whoop.
Let's get this thing started. FoosTalk Live. Coming to you live from the studios of Foosball Radio and inside Foos TV, it's the 48th episode of FoosTalk Live, brought to you in part by 518 Prints, one of the best printers of promotional items, t-shirts, jackets, hoodies, and Foosball apparel. Visit 518prints.com today. Brought to you in part by Foosballers The Movie. Download your copy of this Joe Hesslinger documentary at foosballersthemovie.com. Also, FoosTalk Live being brought to you by Foosball Clubs USA, promoting foosball through school systems all over the country. Visit foosballclubsusa.com and make a donation today. And also being brought to you by United States Table Soccer Organization, the USTSO, helping to usher in a new era of competitive foosball. Become a member and register at usafoosball.com. Well, hey there. I'm Tom Robinson. Welcome back to FoosTalk Live. We're about to spend another Sunday evening talking about the beautiful game known as foosball. And a sincere thanks to Midori Kimura for filling in last week as guest host. She did a fantastic job. It's always a pleasure to have Midori hanging out with us. Now, of course, conversation is a whole lot more interesting if you got somebody else to talk to. And of course, all the way back from, I believe, the wilds of Arizona, from the great state of Colorado and inside Foos TV studios, it's the world's greatest foosball play-by-play announcer, Jim Stevens. Hello, Jim.
Tom Robinson, great to hear your voice. I feel a little bit out of shape. It's 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks since I've done the show, and it seems like a lot longer than that. I was, as you say, out of town for the week. It was spring break here in Durango, so we headed south to Phoenix.
Did you miss the
desert?
Did you miss the snow? Because there's a lot of snow, I guess, in Colorado.
We did.
Last week.
Yeah. We caught some driving down in northern Arizona, but got through it down into the 60, 70, and then 80-degree temperatures of Phoenix and had a great time. But as you said, thanks to Midori for filling in last week and the special guest, Mario Iannuzzi, as well.
Yes, he was
a
great.
Very well-spoken individual, knows the game, very cerebral player. And those Canadians are just such nice people.
Yeah, super nice guy. He didn't even want to admit or remember that he had beaten me badly at New York State Championships and just basically toyed with us when we played him. But he said, "Oh no, I played full tilt." And I know you did. I know you did. So,
like I say, they're the Canadians, extremely nice people.
Yeah.
And looking forward to tonight's show. It could be an interesting one. As we look back on the 1980s and the great Tony Bacon, one of the great players of that decade, 6-time world champion on the Dynamo table.
Wow.
So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. How many people in Dynamo can say they won 6 times?
I think he's the only one who can say they'd won 6 world championships.
Really?
Others had won a similar number of titles, perhaps. But as far as world championships go, and we'll talk more about this with Mark Torres as we move forward. And we don't want to forget about Mark.
He's
just
sitting
there
the
waiting.
4-letter word. I mean, I'm sorry, but Mark, I guess he's back too. So Mark, how's the fasting going?
This is the number one song from 1984, guys.
What is
this? You hear it? It's Prince. When Doves Cry. Do you hear that? I'm going to have my own entry music from now on, you guys.
Okay.
All right. Number one song, 1984. The great documentary, Purple Rain. If you haven't seen it.
1984.
Chronicles.
Yes. 1984.
Chronicles,
okay. All right.
Yes.
All right.
Documentary.
Ruffled shirts, blouses from like the Renaissance times, all purple.
Oh,
you've got to see it.
But an absolute killer of a player. I mean, the guy was just, guitar was unstoppable.
We'll close the loop on Prince. He's a Mozart level musical prodigy. Rest in peace. Anyway, fasting. Yeah, I did 3 days. I fasted Sunday through Wednesday. I had one meal Wednesday, one meal Thursday. And then my wife and I lost our minds and ate Swiss roll and cake for Friday, Saturday.
Really?
But
I'm so disappointed. I'm disappointed.
I started another one today, though. The idea is we're going to try to do 3 or 4 day fasts for a while to calibrate. We can't be eating Swiss roll, but I'm starting another one. I started another one at 6:50 today, so I'm going to try to go. Enough about you, Tom. Can we talk about me for once? Crying out loud. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this show. I'm sick of it.
Wow. I guess fasting doesn't keep you in a very good mood. But
No, and I'm pretty slow when it comes to fasting. That's for sure.
likewise.
Jeez.
It was sitting out there. Somebody had to do it.
Man, Mark, it's I'm so sorry. Anyway.
Yeah. So looking forward to tonight's show, and also top 5 tonight. Top 5 players we wish had kept playing, had continued playing, whatever that means to Mark and I. We'll talk a little bit about that, and maybe Clay will pipe in a little, and maybe our guest will have a viewpoint on that as well.
It could be anybody, right? I mean, it could be even. Well, never mind. It could be anybody. Yeah,
it could be. It could be anybody. So it could be anybody, and so it was relatively easy. I felt to come up with a list, and who knows how accurate it is, and who knows if it's what I really believe. But I do like the list, and it's gonna be fun. Going to be fun talking about it. So
who knows if I even care about my list?
Hey, you know what, guys? One thing I wanted to bring up this week, we've got a couple of big birthdays in the world of table soccer. The great British player Robert Atha, his birthday is on March 23rd, and there's one other birthday coming up this week as well, on March 26th, and it's none other than Mr. Mark Torres. If I'm not mistaken, tonight is our 48th show.
Yes, it is.
Am I mistaken in thinking, Mark, that is a number that is it's close for you as well?
Oh man, how did you know? There's too much information. Crazy.
I said close.
Yes,
exactly.
It's my birthday on the 26th. I don't celebrate it.
No,
but my family. I never really did. I don't know. It was once again
one of the few things Mark and I have in common. We don't celebrate our birthday.
Clay, you too. The same thing. You don't celebrate your birthday. Just kind of like
do not celebrate. I celebrate the day I got out of prison. I don't celebrate my birthday.
Yeah. All right.
Which, ironically enough, is on Independence Day. So go figure that one out.
I love it.
It's awesome. I love that. That's great.
Well, you have to. You're forced to then.
Mark, you kind of sound older, dude. I don't know what it is, man. It makes sense that you have a birthday this week.
It's all just a number. It's just a number.
Can
I squeeze in a birthday shout out too, since we're doing that right now?
Yeah.
There's a local player here, Jeff Greenhall. He has a birthday tomorrow. I think he's 44. We sang happy birthday last night out at the DYP.
Nice.
And he would absolutely love hearing a happy birthday from
you, Jeff.
You guys.
That's your name.
1, 2, 3. Happy. No, we're not going to sing it. Happy birthday, Jeff.
Happy birthday. Not for me anyway.
Happy birthday to
you. Speaking of birthdays, and I don't know if this is an accurate segue. In some ways, it might be.
It's not, but go ahead.
Next Sunday, and for those of you listening, next Sunday, kind of a special episode of FoosTalk Live, as we have a big announcement coming next week. And I think what's going to happen is, who is the guest next week? Am I the guest next week? Is that how we're doing this?
I think you are. I think that I saw the docket, and it's like, wait a second, Jim is listed as special guest. What's up with that?
Weird? That is weird.
Well, you're piquing my interest. What's going on?
Has that ever happened in the history of radio or anything where one of the hosts is the special guest? Well, no, it's just some stuff that's been going on, and we have a relatively big announcement next week. We'll just put it that way as we look forward. But it's going to be a special episode for those of you listening live, for those of you listening on download. Make sure you tune in next week at 9:00 Eastern time for a very special episode of FoosTalk Live.
Let's see. Mark Torres is going to be in the next mission to Mars.
Okay.
Am I close?
That's very, very close. Although at his age, I'm not so sure.
I'm about to peak, baby. I'm about to
springs
peak.
eternal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I got. I'm thinking this is going to be a fun show tonight as well.
Interesting. No, I think it's going to be fabulous. Let's put it that way.
Looking forward to spending some time with our old friend Tony, who I have known for a good 40 plus years.
Wow.
Another F word. 40, fabulous, all kinds of F words so far.
Yeah.
We're good.
Taking count. If you don't mind, Clay, if you could do the stats on the show tonight, every time there is an F word uttered, then you need to mark it down for us.
There will be stats.
All right.
Hey, just keep an eye on the behind the scenes chat there, because trust me, there will be stats.
All right.
Promise.
Okay. All right.
Some of which may be available for our listeners, and some of which probably shouldn't be. All right, hey, let's get this thing started.
Well, with all this talk about special announcements and trips to Mars and fasting, I've worked up a thirst. I don't know about you, Jim.
Heck yeah.
What Jim and I like to do right about this time is to reveal our favorite IPA.
Now, you were teasing us earlier about your IPA of the week this week.
I mentioned it in the pregame. It's a good one. In fact, it's a beer I have had. In fact, I've had just this week, and I have a growler of it sitting here. It is from the Tombstone Brewing Company. I was down in southeast Arizona this past week, which includes the small town of Tombstone, Arizona.
Nice.
And this brewery is literally around the corner from the OK Corral.
Is it really?
Tombstone Brewing Company. I've got a Strata, double
already.
IPA. Strata being a type of hops.
Okay.
It's 8.3% alcohol, and I know it's a good one. Here's the address of the place. It's on 107 East Tough Nut Street in Tombstone, Arizona. Good old Tough Nut. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, I'm gonna have a sip.
Here we go.
Sip of the tough nut.
Oh man, that's good.
Yeah.
That is really, really good. That's a top 3 beer for me for this year.
Is it really? So definitely worth the trip to the destination of the OK Corral to get that IPA. That's awesome.
Yeah, just watch your back down there. That's for
right.
sure.
Yes, seriously.
What about you, Tom? What are you having?
Well, we're traveling to South this time. I haven't been to North Carolina lately, but I thought, hey, let's take a listen and take a look. We've got Hog City Foos. I'm sorry. It's Wooden Robot. It's an urban farmhouse brewery in Charlotte, North Carolina. They make something called Space Magic, which is 7% by volume, and it's got a wooden robot on the front of the can here. Let's see here. Yeah, homemade robots. Lovely. Okay, here we go.
Wooden robot.
Wooden robot. See if it tastes like a wooden robot. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, it doesn't taste wooden at all.
Did they make robots out of wood before there was metal to make them out of?
That's a good question. But that is very Space Magic-y, I have to say. Very Space Magic-y. Yep, see? All right. So, Mark, what, pray tell, on a fasting evening, what are you doing?
As you could have assumed, it's a large glass of water, Tom. Thank you for asking.
Fine vintage, a lovely bouquet.
Yes, just water from the refrigerator. Probably need to change the filter. Clay, talk to me, buddy. What do you got? Make it lively.
I'm going twin engine as per usual, but the 2 engines are different tonight. I have a 20-ounce cup. Paper cup from McDonald's with Coke with no ice in it, and then in the other
Coke, no ice.
thing that I'm drinking in honor of tonight's episode is a warm glass of Shut the Hell Up. Mute my mic and just listen.
Oh boy! Well, I guess
I'm not saying much tonight.
That puts
but
an exclamation on
I
it.
can't even make the cool sound of opening the can because it's literally just my kid texted me earlier and said, "Hey, I'm buying McDonald's.
Wow.
You want anything?"
Wow.
I'm like, oh, cool. I'm not hungry, but I'll take a drink. Yeah.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
kid's 14, dude, and he's offering to buy dinner, dude.
That's sweet.
Jeez, yeah.
Yep.
You're raising them right.
Outstanding young man. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, he could probably teach you a thing or two about budgeting, man. He's already got it together, dude. Very proud.
You know,
all right. Let's set up a meeting.
This
I'm down.
generation coming up, they've really got a lot more insight than we did when we were even 35. So
Well, they have better parents.
right,
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Mhm.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll let y'all figure out what that means. But yeah.
I don't disagree with that, by the way. That's a great point. Hey, who are we toasting tonight?
Well,
Tom?
I thought perhaps we could also recognize a group out of Fayetteville, Arkansas. They're called Hog City Foos.
Woo Pig Suey.
Yep, and they play at a place called On the Mark. So, Mark, I don't know if you've been there at all, but it's called On the Mark. And
I always appreciate a facility being named after me, but I haven't been able to see them yet. So
Okay.
I'll try to get out there.
Hog City
That's University
Foos.
of Arkansas. That's a Razorback country, right?
Yes.
There, Clay. That's what you were
Yeah.
referring to.
Woo-
The great
Woo
Frank
Pig
Boyles,
Suey, yeah.
that great
It's a
coach there for
religion
so
there.
many years.
Is it really?
It is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No,
That's what the Hog City's from. Hog City's Razorbacks.
That's
Woo Pig
exactly right.
Suey is their weird little when every kickoff they go Woo Pig
It is the biggest thing in the state of Arkansas.
It's
It
the only
really
thing
is.
in this
It-
Arkansas. Okay. Besides foosball,
Hey,
it's the only thing there. Let's be
foosball.
honest.
Cheers to you guys.
yes, cheers
Lifting
to
a
Hog
glass
City
to
Foos.
the Hog City.
Yeah,
Cheers to
yeah.
you guys.
Good.
up the good
Thank you
work.
for playing. Oh yeah. Oh, that Space Magic is just getting more magic by the minute.
Is it? Good.
It is.
To hear.
Man.
I'm spaced out, man.
Woohoo. So,
Clay, you may have to fill in for Tom here in a few minutes. We'll see.
I'm ready, dude. I am ready.
thank you. I appreciate that. At my age, you just never know. Every breath is a blessing at this stage. So we're looking forward to talking to Tony Bacon, but before that, we have to do something a little different for the flashback, and I think you'll understand as soon as we get a chance to listen to it. But here comes the FoosTalk Live Flashback.
With great moments in foosball history, this is a FoosTalk Live Flashback.
Sets it up, scopes it home. It is World Championship point for the Belgians. 1 goal away from winning the World Cup. And again, you see Collignon near corner. The Belgians are ready to erupt. That's okay. And that one knocks back into the goal, and there it is. Belgium has won the 2012 ITSF World Cup of Table Soccer. What a performance. Great match, and it's Belgium who is the 2012 champion. Freddy Collignon, you've won everything there is to win in the world of table soccer except the World Cup. Can't say that anymore. You and your team, your great team, just won the World Cup. Tell us a little bit about how you feel.
Like I said, I'm really proud of the team because I just took 1 point and they took all the other points. So they play really well and they increase their level. Everybody plays best level, and I was really amazed of their. I'm really proud of their play.
Listen in next time for another great moment in foosball history. It's FoosTalk Live Flashback.
You know, Jim, I have to say, I compliment you. You did a really nice imitation of Freddy there.
Thank you. That's my best one yet. Yeah,
that was awesome. That was pretty. You got the dialect perfectly.
But you're now realizing just how accurate my impression of him is. Speaking of impressions, the impression when I was putting this clip together, and of course I'm seeing the video as well. Jam-packed crowd.
Yes.
I mean, there was not an empty seat in there. A good 1,000 to 1,200 people watching this match. You could hear in that clip, you could hear the chanting of the Belgians and of the Europeans, so like a soccer game. Such great atmosphere, and they were doing it throughout the match. Every time that there was a goal scored afterwards, you'd hear this singing and this chanting in the crowd. Just incredible atmosphere. And of course, Fred, who has won everything, had never won that one. And it meant so much to him. He is a team guy. It meant so much to him. He got great performances out of the rest of his team. And of course, he got to close it out. But what a memory, those days of those huge crowds in Nantes at the World Cup. And I think we can look ahead to that in the next few years as well. But what a great memory for me and, of course, for Fred and the Belgians.
So it's safe to say you could say this is his Cinderella moment where he finally got it. Got invited to the ball.
Yeah, I think so. And it wasn't his fault. Oftentimes it was a big jump, a big drop from his level of play to the next level of play with his teammates who they weren't as multi-table exposed at that point. They were predominantly playing on their local tables, their regional tables, Bonzini tables, etc. in Belgium. So winning a multi-table championship for Belgium was a big deal.
Doesn't it often seem, though, when you talk about Freddy Collignon in the scale of the world, he seems like he is Europe's player, not necessarily Belgium's player, but he is Europe's player. He's like the one that stands up for everybody else on the continent and goes across the pond and beats up on the Americans and comes back triumphant.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that for sure. Although within the continent, when I've worked international events, he's there. He is definitely not German. He is definitely not French. They do want to beat him, although they can't, and they do have such respect for him. But you may have something to that in that he is really the only European to ever come over here and have that kind of success. Robert Atho, of course, also has had some success without winning a championship. But Fred, 28 Tornado World Championships on his worst table.
Very cool.
But what a weekend! What a week it was for him in Nantes back in 2012.
Yeah, no doubt. And one of these days, instead of having you imitate him, maybe we'll have actually Freddy on for the show.
Yeah, I think we can make that happen down the way. We may have to record it in the afternoon for him.
Right.
It is rather late in Europe, although it didn't seem to bother Reese Roberts a few weeks ago.
No.
But we'd love to have Fred on, and we'll see if we can make that happen. Mark talks with Fred all the time.
Yeah, I could. I don't want to be overzealous about what I'm capable of with Fred. I don't know if I could get him to show up to a 3 a.m., but absolutely something recorded, something interviewed, and maybe if we're lucky, we get him to stay up one night enjoying the show.
That would be fun.
That'd be great. Yeah,
that would be fun. Or take the show to him or something. I don't know. Something akin to that. But no, that's very cool. I think that hearing. Especially about a moment where he had something he had never been able to do and all of a sudden conquered it. That's a great sound. That's really cool.
It is like the equivalent of Michael Jordan willing the Charlotte Hornets to an NBA championship.
Right.
I wasn't there, but just imagine, when Michael Jordan left the Bulls, he goes to the Hornets and he tries his best, but he can't pull that team through to a world championship. Fred was able to do that, and he shows a great bit of humility, giving his team the credit. I wasn't there, and for all I know, the team rose up, but trust me when I say that even not being there, that team rose up around Fred for sure.
Right.
Yep,
No doubt.
They sure did.
What
They sure
enthusiasm in the crowd there. There you go, Mark. There's the way it should sound in this country as well. You know, for
absolutely.
a major,
Right.
no question about it. People yelling,
Well,
singing.
Yeah, hopefully we're going to get Mark some experience in international foosball. You never know, over the next few years, maybe we can get you over there to experience this, because that's fairly common, with a lot of these European nations. And it comes from soccer, of course, where they're sitting in the crowd singing songs and chanting and all of that. But the atmosphere is always just so tremendous at that event in particular. There's nothing like a World Cup.
Right. It sounds amazing. Sounds really, really cool. Well, we're going to get to Tony Bacon here in a bit. I know that he is in California these days. But in the meantime, I know that our top 5 is very unique this evening. Very unique. And if I could get just a brief explanation as to how you both view this, we posted it as the top 5 players you wished had never stopped playing. Or am I paraphrasing that, or am I close?
Yeah, Mark, you want to take it first? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Mark actually came up with this topic, and so let's hear what Mark's view is on it, and then I'll follow up.
I love these are my favorite because these topics give Jim and I all kinds of license and permission to be absolutely on opposite ends of the spectrum, because we get to interpret it however we want. And I was thinking through the last couple of episodes, and I think more than once I've referred to the unique type of trauma that happened to foosball when tournament soccer ends, and all these players that had focused on it as a professional life skill or craft stop playing. What happens to a sport? I don't know another sport that's happened to, so I don't have a point of reference.
Sure.
I can tell you what I think happened in foosball is decades and thousands of hours of expertise and tactical acumen and strategy and psychological warfare in competitive, stressful situations is instantly lost when these guys stop playing foosball. So I like to imagine all types of different things, and one of them are the guys and gals, maybe, if they would have kept playing, how the sport might have looked different. That's how I went about it.
Okay,
Jim?
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we take the perspective that there's an alternate universe where tournament soccer didn't crash, or at the very least, if prize money didn't drop by 90%, it was the end, literally overnight for these guys. And we've talked to a lot of them about it this year and during this season of FoosTalk Live. Some players did keep playing, a few of them, but I guess the one way to look at this, we'd love to see these players continue because they were exciting or good for foosball or just good people. What more could some of these people have accomplished? And I'm not taking just the old 70s players who didn't continue playing. I've got a few others in here as well.
Oh, okay. Contemporary.
And of course, some players choose to retire. Others don't choose to retire. Others passed away until it wasn't really their choice to continue. Some players will never retire, right? We've seen Steve Murray still comes out and plays, and John Smith, who really, his game looks great every time I see him play. It's been a while, a year and a half, but he was back out on tour and playing well. And obviously Todd Lafredo, who continued on. But there are other cases of players who, by choice or by circumstances or whatever, stopped playing. And these are some of the people that we wish kind of had kept going.
All right. So fair to say this is the top 5 players of what would have been.
Time once again for the FoosTalk Live Top 5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here's Jim Stevens and Mark Torres.
Yeah, so, counting down the top 5 players that we wish had continued playing, had kept playing, had never, stopped playing. And like Mark said, we have a little bit of elbow room. We have a little flexibility here in how we can approach this. And Mark, I'm kind of looking forward to it. It's always fun with these top 5s to be able to tell stories and to kind of bring up the history of the sport and get perspective on it and a little insight on things. And that's kind of what we can do here tonight.
Yep, I'm ready. Let's go, Tom.
Let's do it.
Yep.
FoosTalk Live Top 5. Number.
All right, there's this guy, right? Early 90s. He has the crushing, smoking, long dead bar pull shot. Smooth as silk 5-bar. Steady, composed, under pressure. Unwavering, and win. He's a winner. I think he wins master singles twice I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think he wins master singles twice, and he wins at least one or two doubles majors, and then just drops off the planet.
Huh.
He still skulks around the local draws a little bit, but this guy was a feared competitor, and they had to watch out for this guy because he went very, very rapidly from novice to one of the top masters in the world. That guy's Charles Britt. And if you take a look at stuff, you could still find him playing. If there's a video of the 1992 World Championships, someone else posted it on the Inside Foos TV page. You can see Charles Britt on there playing against, I think it's Giuliano Bentivoglio for somewhere like, I think it's for fifth in open singles at the Worlds in 92. And he's just a beast. He's an absolute machine. I don't want to get into the different reasons why people stop playing. I don't know. And some of it, the detail I don't know. The minutia is not there. I will just tell you that if Charles Britt would have continued to play at the trajectory he was playing at, I don't know if he's going to be in the Hall of Fame now. He may make it now, but he's absolutely a Hall of Fame player that would have had many more titles if he would have persisted. So that number 5, I have Charles Britt.
Yeah, that he didn't even occur to me until you mentioned him, and I went, "Oh yeah, no kidding." And I don't think he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, but as you say, if he had continued to play, he very well could have. Back in 1994, 1995, Brendan Flaherty commissioned me to create these foosball cards, right? To take the top 30 players on the Pro Tour, and then 6 other specialty cards, etc. And so I went and I picked out the best players that I saw, and this was early in my career as a broadcaster. And Charles Britt got a foosball card. He was in there with pretty much everyone else in that collection is a Hall of Famer. And so, we gave him that. And as you said, Mark, the first guy to win 2 Masters championships when that was a very prestigious, very difficult event to win. Came out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and played against a lot of really great players there. And it was surprising that right around 94, 95, he pretty much totally stopped playing. I'd still run into him at Texas State. He'd come up and say hi. I've seen him as recently as probably the last Texas State. But great choice there. My number 5, however, and this was a guy that basically decided to retire. He's been on a lot of our top 5 lists. He's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the great players of all time. But around 2008, 2009, he announced it. He said, "This is it. I'm pretty much done. This is my last tournament." It's Terry Moore. I mean, Terry, of course, the man who revolutionized the sport with a rollover. And I guess he was a great goalie, so maybe he could have continued playing goalie. Obviously, the great 5 row was always going to keep him in matches and give him a chance to win not only matches but championships. But would he have eventually adapted, do you think, and gone from that traditional rocking snake shot to a walking snake shot style? He certainly could have. Terry could do anything he wanted to on a table, but I as great as his career was, I'm left wanting a little bit. I mean, it could have been maybe a few more world championships, an international world championship, being on the World Cup team, all of these things. He was on the World Cup team in 2006, the only one he's been on. Of course, that team finished 5th after that legendary loss to France. But for me, knowing Terry as I do, and have really having seen him grow from a rookie player to the best player in the world, I kind of would have liked him to see him play a little more and adapt a little more, or become a goalie, because he was such a smart player and a great goalie when he was back there. So for me, I have Terry Moore at number 5.
Let me give you 2 thoughts on Terry Moore real quickly, Jim, because I think that's a great choice. First of all, if Terry wanted to stick around, I think he would have eventually transitioned to be an incredible goalie. Not just an incredible goalie, though, an incredible mentor, coach, goalie. Yeah, not unlike Todd. Develop, create, and he had plenty more to give the game. But I'll say this one last thing about Terry. He told me that when he quit, he said, "Look, I hated losing more than I love winning." And the last time he said he lost a singles match to Jeep, and he knew then he was done because he hated losing to Jeep. So he loses a singles match to Jeep. He's like, "I'm done. I'm done playing foosball." The straw that broke the camel's back was losing to Jeep. Anyway. That's my
that might have happened to a few other players as well.
I'm sorry, that's just not a good excuse. That's lost to one player and then that's the end of the career. I mean,
you had to know the player. I think you had to know the player, Tom. All right.
Yeah, thank you for schooling me on that.
FoosTalk Live Top 5. Number 4.
At my number 4, I got Kenny Allwell. Because so people make choices, not unlike you, Jim. You could be on this list too, by the way. What I mean by that is, if you decide you're going to give to the game and bleed for the game and try to do something positive for the game, ultimately what usually happens. Like 99% of the time, I can't think of a great example except for maybe Steve Murray. You sacrifice your competitive will, and you also very difficult to be an ambassador to the sport, and then in the next breath compete directly with these people that you're trying to develop as customers. So when you try to support the sport, you sacrifice your competitive engagement to it. And, Ken Allwell, he drops out in the 70s, basically skulks around, plays a little bit in the 80s, doesn't really focus, decides to focus at the 93 championships and takes second in open mix.
94. Yep.
94. Sorry. Yep. 94. Takes second in open mix. He manhandles Masters left and right, crushes them, gets to the finals of open mix. And then we know Kenny has a deep devotion to the sport from a business acumen side. And the sacrifice is these guys don't really compete at the same level. So he's a 70s master who could have done more competitively, but made the sacrifice to focus more on the business side. We'll never know at this point, but I think he was one of those guys that could have made the transition like Lafredo and kept evolving with the game. Mentally, he would have been a bear into the finals. So my number 4 is Kenny Allwell.
Great pick. And of course, Kenny was on with us a few weeks ago, one of my best friends in foosball. But a guy that so smart, so athletic on the table, surprisingly athletic, a guy that could have made the transition. For me, selfishly, I wish Kenny had kept playing because I love to watch him play. He's so smooth. Everything was just so athletic and so practiced and so smart. So great choice there. I wonder if we're going to come up with 10 different names on our two lists.
I think so. We might.
My number 4 is Moya Thielens. We had a chance. Moya Thielens, for about a 5-year period, going from the late 90s into the early 2000s, was quite simply the best lady forward I've ever seen. I mean, we know what she did with Garrett Schirkenbach at the 04 Hall of Fame Classic. And then due to life issues, due to whatever, she sort of tailed off. Even though she was continuing to play, she wasn't what she had been for that 5-year period. I would have loved to have seen her sustain that, because we would be talking now about a woman who would rival Cindy Head, record-wise, I think, for the greatest lady player ever. And unfortunately, of course, we lost her a few years ago, and she had been dabbling and playing still a little bit, but she was never quite the same for a variety of reasons that we won't delve into, as she was during that 5, maybe 6-year period when she was amazing, just dominant. I mean, better than, and I don't mean this to sound sexist in any way, but better than 90% of the women or the men as well. And just a great forward, a great player. Great fun to watch, really enjoyable. When Moya was playing, there were crowds watching because, she was that good, and also entertaining on the table as well. Just wish she could have sustained it. Obviously, we wish that she was still with us. We wish that that there was a comeback in there somewhere, and we miss her. And it's just, for me, she's number 4 as the players I wish had have kept playing and maybe had have sustained what she achieved during that 5 or 6 year period. Moya Thielens for me at number 4.
FoosTalk Live Top 5. Number 3.
I got Gus Trevino at number 3. And you've heard Gus come up. And, I try to be careful because there's a certain fondness for the memory of the time when I had the most enjoyment out of the game when I was playing it in my youth in the 90s. So I'm a kid in the 90s, and this guy, who doesn't have really any power out of from the 2-bar, but is poised and composed and makes the big block and makes the big clear. And I'm from an environment where we learned how to play foos, a really hacky, belligerent, non-thinking style of play where everything was a reverse or something super hard and fast. And then you see this person introduce you to something novel, a slow moving defense. It's not a race. He's anticipating, he's dictating, he's making you decide where he's blocking 2 out of the 3 holes or a piece of them at all times. It was really, really radical for a kid out of East San Jose, who's used to some kind of combination of racing or baiting, to see this guy who doesn't have a ton of power, who doesn't have the lateral speed, methodically break down other masters and make them shoot into his men and then clear the ball for the big pass, as opposed to the rookies we were trying to hit home runs all the time and everything had to be dead bar long. So Gus Trevino, he's dominant as a goalie, and there are a few dominant goalies, and he's really, really the genesis of what Bobby Diaz would become and other really cerebral goalies that become hybrid goalies later, like someone like Tracy McMillan, who does have all the smoking shots of the 2-bar. He's essentially incorporating these ideas of tactical defensive play, capturing the ball and all the fundamentals of goalieship, and then combining it with the great 2-bar. So I wish Gus would have stuck around. It would have been amazing. He just drops off the face of the earth, not like Charles Britt. He does other things. If he would have stuck around, he would have had many more titles, I believe, with certainty. Gus Trevino, that's my number 3.
Very, very well said, Mark. Really, really well said. And you think about Gus, a guy that really, again, had a short window. We talked about Moya being 5 or 6 years. It wasn't much more than that, if more than that, with Gus Trevino. But during that time period, he won 3 world championships in 4 years. The kind of goalie that top forwards want to play with. How many more world championships could he have won? How many more titles could he have won? Well, he would be a shoo-in, certainly, for Hall of Fame. Already should be, in my opinion, but that would have made it a no-brainer. My number 3. I'm going to reach back into the 70s, the one player out of the 70s that I kind of wish had have survived, so to speak, the fall of TS, and that's Jim Wiswell. What could have Jimmy have done? He was the most exciting, the most explosive, the most legendary player from the 1970s, a guy that to this day is spoken about in hushed tones, because of the greatness and the way he went about it and the way he did it, how fast he was, how hard he hit that ball. The body language, the menacing sort of dominant sort of approach to the game, aggressiveness. And without the crash of the TS tour, maybe we would have seen him continue. It would have been nice to have him continue anyway. But, a guy that I wish I could have seen play more, and that's Jim Wiswell, the one guy I'm going to pull from that 70s group of players and wish that he had continued. For me, Wiswell was number 3.
FoosTalk Live Top 5. Number 2.
So this is a guy that was unbelievable to me. Not unlike Dave Gummison, the first time I saw Gummison, or Lafredo or Murray because he's on my poster, and Lafredo because the name just his reputation preceded him in the 90s. But this guy was a superstar, and you watch him play, the lateral speed, the power, the skill, the poise, and he's another guy who just falls off. And Lafredo says that this guy should be in the Hall of Fame. Now, I know there's bias. I only got to see him play a handful of times, maybe 2 or 3 tournaments I got to see. And I would follow this guy around and watch him play. He'd play 2-ball rollerball, and he would just smoke the ball, just like rapid, fast, amazing skill. That person is Larry Chesborough. I don't know what happens with Larry. He just kind of like drops off. I think there are some stories about him dropping off, but there were many, many more players. And the only point of reference really is if you were there, because the video doesn't really exist. But you've seen these guys in their isolated communities, wherever they were from. They worked their asses off to get their skill level to high muscle memory, like high levels of execution. You could tell they worked so hard on their games that they would have been competitive. It was just putting it all together at the right time. He won a bunch of pro titles. I'm not sure what his open titles win were like, but I remember the skill and I remember the intimidation. I remember people not wanting to play him, and I wish he would have stuck around because we could have seen how much more he would have impacted foosball. My number 2 is Larry Chesborough.
Yeah, for sure. And when you hear testimonials from Todd Lafredo and others talking about just the level of play that he was competing at during that period in the mid to late 80s, it would have been fun certainly to see him. My number 2, and I'm twisting it a little bit here, but my number 2 is Freddy Collignon on Tornado. It's been 9 years now since we've had the pleasure of having Mr. Collignon here in the United States competing at the Tornado World Championships or in any event here in the United States. Perhaps he and Ingrid came over for a vacation at some point, maybe, although I think they like to go to Portugal. But he has not been back since that 2012 World Championship. Now, at that 2012 World Championship, the last time we saw him, the last event he competed at here in this country, he tripled at the Tornado Worlds. Mm-hmm. He won doubles, he won singles, he won mixed doubles, and then doesn't play over here again. I've had a chance to go over to Europe. I've seen him play multiple times at the various World Championship Series events or at the P4P championships in Germany. He still wins most of the time, just about every event he plays in. But to see him on Tornado against Tony, against Billy, against Ryan, against Rob Atha, against these great American players, great international players on the Tornado table, I miss it. I mean, this is a guy that won 28 titles, and the way he did it, for me to commentate a guy that approaches the game the way he did and still does, but on Tornado in particular, how specific he was about things, how much insight he had into the game on Tornado, the way he would think, the way he would use his timeouts, his table management, obviously the skill, the dancing, hitting the right hole at the right time, the competitiveness where no one has ever been better than he is at 4-4 on a Tornado table. How many times? It was 4-4. He had the ball. He served it, passed it. He called timeout. He scored it to win the match. How many times did I see that? And so I miss it. From my point of view as a commentator, I miss commentating Fred on the Tornado table. Hopefully someday we can get him back over here. Collignon, number 2 for me.
FoosTalk Live proudly presents the top 5. Number 1.
Well, I am going
to 8 different names so far. Buddy.
yeah,
different
great.
names.
And I know this one's going to be different for us too. I got to pull this name out because it goes back to something I said earlier about foosball being forever changed. And we know this because it's true of foosball, but it's also true of any other competitive endeavor. That the difference between winning and losing is between the ears of the competitors. It's mental. At the highest levels of foosball, the skill is relative parity. I mean, it's some like Tony may have all of his passes and everything he can do in a high level of execution, but the other masters can execute at the same level from whatever they have an up to pass and a down pass and a lane pass. They at the highest levels, the physical skill is relative. It's the mental game that always separates the winners and the losers. It always has been. It will be for any competitive endeavor, and your ability to execute under pressure. So when I look at this number 1 and I think what players could have impacted, yes, they could have maintained their career if they wanted to and evolved with the game and changed with the times and found more creative ways to win, but also already had the mental toughness, the mental fortitude to survive. And like you just said about Frederic, pass and score when it matters the most, not to waver in that moment. And there was a tremendous competitor who decided to stop playing. And I think I like here. And here's the other thing about this before I get to the name. There's an old timey Santa Cruz photo, right? They took this photo in Santa Cruz and they took it's kind of ironic because they took pictures in Western clothing. And in that picture is Jim Wiswell, Laurie Schranz, Johnny Lott, Ken Alwell, Todd Lafredo, who's, by the way, the weakest player at the time in that photo. He's the crappiest person. I mean, he won in 78 or 77, whatever it was. But with that group of people at that time, he's the weakest person. The other person in that photo is Doug Furry. And we do not know if Doug Furry played at least through the 90s. Granted, he would have been who knows what kind of player he would have been now. He's been old now, but at least through the 90s. I believe those banners on the walls look different. I think Doug Furry impacts the game. I think Doug Furry evolves. I think why would it be? Granted, there's like a 10-year age gap, so maybe that matters. But think about how dominant Todd was coming from that 70s era and continuing to absolutely punish people. And he's one of the few people that really persisted as though it was still his professional craft. I would challenge anyone that you had dozens of these high-level masters who worked the 10,000 hours, had the mental fortitude, who just decided to stop pursuing it as their craft. And if they had, all those banners look different. They continue to play. They continue to groom people beneath them. They continue to teach people. They continue to execute on 4-4 when it matters. And it's the difference. Those masters are the difference. They vanish. Doug Furry, chief amongst them. It would have been great to see Doug Furry play through the 90s with the same commitment as Todd. He made his life choices, which are absolutely, God bless you. You do what you have to do. But still, it's incredible to fantasize about what Doug Furry would have done.
Yeah, no question about it. It really is interesting to think about. This was an incredibly smart player, very skilled player, very tough player, and a winner, like you said, a guy that in clutch situations was the man. He's the guy that came up big on so many occasions, and absolutely would have loved to see that. So for the first time ever, Tom Robinson, there are going to be 10 different names on a mark in my lists.
Great.
Some others said, I'll throw in a couple of honorable mentions. Obviously, Johnny Horton would have been great to see him continue playing. I loved watching Don Swan play He stopped. Laurie Schranz, the great lady player from the 70s, who stopped because of the crash. And the guy we talk about every once in a while, but it's so much fun to watch, Thor Donovan, doesn't play anymore. He came back, I think in Vegas in 2016 maybe, and played in that DYP that was advertised for the old timers, and played really well. But my number one, and a little of this is coming from my heart. It's Tom Spear. Obviously, what a pleasure to watch this guy, right? Try to get into his brain. What's he thinking? What's he doing here? And he's always a step ahead of us as we're trying to really envision and analyze what he's doing. But what a pleasure, and such charisma on the table, right? There's just a certain charisma about him. If he's there's a certain Zen sort of smooth kind of just aura about him that you want to watch this guy, right? And we know Tom has made his choices as well. I'm not sure all of them were choices he was completely independent in making, so to speak. But for me, I wish he was still around. The Pro Tour was good for him. The family, the friends on the Pro Tour were good for him. He was a guy that liked to come around the campfire in the evening, at the end of a day, and spend time with his friends. And obviously, selfishly, I want to watch him play. And yes, he who knows what else he could have done. But I miss him as that guy that was there. And this, it was Tom, the soft-spoken Tom Spear. Hey, dude, let's, and so I miss him. Yeah, I do. And for me, this list was a little bit about that. It's about people I wanted to see play, about people that made me feel good about foosball, that made me feel, interested in what was going on. And for me, number one, the guy that I wish more than any other was still part of the Pro Tour, was still playing, whether he'd be playing at the highest level, whether he'd be playing senior events, whether he'd be playing for the Senior World Cup team. This is a guy, Tom Spear, that I wish was still playing.
Great choice.
Yeah.
No argument there. Wonderful choice. I like it.
I'm glad he made the list. I think that's an outstanding pick for sure. It brings to mind the Tom Spear project. I'm seeing that on Facebook now. Do you know anything about that?
It's people that go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead, Mark. You go, Mark.
I'll just say that people that are enamored remember him for the hard work and effort, and are trying to track him. And they do track him. They find him. He has some regular stomping grounds. Okay. And they check in on him, and they take pictures when they can, and they converse with him.
Take care of him.
And it seems to be So it's a great project to have going on.
He is where he wants to be, apparently. So and is there a place they can go? Is it Facebook that people can go to get a little more information about what's going on with Tom Spear?
Yeah, it's called the Tom Spear Project Facebook page, and you can find it. Just Google Tom Spear or search Tom Spear Project.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
Well, one other guy that kind of stopped playing, although we're going to talk about some of his recent exploits, so I don't know that he's entirely retired, is our special guest tonight, and I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick aside, guys, after listening to what you just had to say about all these phenomenal players who are no longer playing for whatever reason, it just brings to mind that there's so many casualties along the way, this rough road of pro foosball, that it really kind of highlights the people like a Todd Lafredo who survived all of that. It kind of makes his achievements that much more grand, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great point, Tom.
No, it's extraordinary. What a rough road this is, and of course, being the top of any field has got to be mentally and physically just totally demanding. So.
Yeah, 10 different names. That was kind of cool.
That's
10
amazing.
Different players we got to talk about, which shows how disparate these things can be sometimes. So that was fun, Mark.
It was great. Loved it.
And one of the things we get to do here at FoosTalk Live, which I love, is getting a chance to talk to the people who actually live this and do this. And of course, tonight's guest is no exception. He was six-time world champion on the Dynamo table, and in fact made the top 5 list as the #1 Dynamo forward. And these days,
shut up! I mean it. Get out. Get out.
Please put it together. Let's welcome.
All right, believe it or not, I'm the 7-time world champion. I won 3 world singles titles in a row.
Wow.
And I just hate that, and I hate the part about you guys don't tell me I'm in the world's Guinness Book of Records. I hate the part where I won the Dynamo singles tornado. And then me and Murray beat the crap out of all you guys.
Yeah, I remember that. You guys beat me pretty bad. I didn't play you.
How about that?
Hey, Tony Bacon, nice to hear from you, buddy. And well, great way to come onto the show. No one else has quite matched your opening. It reminds me of your.
I'm just saying. Come on, how many people have ever won 3 world championships in a row?
Yeah, not many.
Right.
A handful, right?
Federico and a couple Tony.
Yeah, Tony. Billy.
By the way, his name's called Tony, so I like him a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go. Well, Tony Bacon, I mean, you're.
By the way, how many people have ever won a gold medal when no one else did? Todd was there. Flair was there. Guess what?
Gold medal.
All the national anthems that was played was just played for us. By the way, we didn't kneel.
No, that would be your option, your choice, depending.
How about 2 years later in Germany when we won it again? And any guy like those guys and stuff like that, I don't even care if the best team was the first team, but I know the second team won the gold medal.
Yeah.
By the way, guess what we didn't do again? Neil.
Tony, that would be your choice once again.
Tony,
you
heard
a
our
different choice on each one.
I'll be quiet. Get out.
Tony, you heard our top 5. Tony, you heard our top 5. You got 5 guys or gals that you would have loved to see keep playing that stopped playing?
Well, the only thing I don't like about Stevens is I left him in Seattle.
Oh, we're going
but
already.
When he said Tom Spear was his favorite player, it's mine. It's mine. We practiced together. I never thought I could beat him, but I did.
So is Tom Spear your number 1, or do you got 4 other guys?
Furry's the best player in the world.
Furry, okay, that's my number 1. So we agree. Anyone else you think you would wish would have kept playing, and you would think they thought they had success through maybe the 90s at least?
I don't even care about that bullshit. I just wanted to learn from the best players. I learned from fucking Spear and Furry how to be the best, and then I was.
There you go.
Claire, are you keeping stats?
Have you ever won 3 singles tournaments, world champions in a row?
I've never even won 3 local.
Have you ever been in 5 out of 6 world championships doubles in a row?
Have you ever commentated 27 world championships in a row?
Have you ever won every bracket in a row and done that?
Dude,
no,
listen,
we don't care about that.
Did you win?
We don't even care.
Did you win? Where were you? Where were you in 1990?
I've never won 3.
Where were you in 1990 when I was winning amateur doubles at the World?
Yeah,
where were you?
Good point.
I was thinking. I think I'm pretty sure I was eating a tuna fish sandwich. But have you ever won 3 world titles in a row in singles?
I'll just say yes, and then
there's only 2 other people that have ever done it that I know of. Federico and Spreedeman. They're pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good.
Billy won 2 in a row.
Who invented the 2-man from the 5-man?
You tell me who did it. Who did it?
I.
Really?
Did you really?
Thanks for destroying the game.
Thank you. The 2 to the 5 destroy the game. Okay. Well, so Tony, the tradition here on FoosTalk Live. First of all, thanks for being here.
I have never said a word that would get me off Facebook yet tonight.
All right. Well, we'd like to start at the very beginning because there's a tradition here. We got to find out what was the first time you saw a foosball table, what kind was it, and when did you first dive into play?
Really, that's a great question. I was 10 years old.
Okay.
My family had just went to Oscoda, Michigan. Yeah, I guarantee you guys know what that is. And I just walked into the place where you make your shakes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a foosball table.
Cool. And did you know what it was?
A foosball table?
Right. But I mean, at 10 years old, had you ever seen a foosball table prior to that?
Ever. No.
Right. And so when was the first time you actually played on a table?
That day.
Okay.
You idiot, Tom.
Cut it out, you guys. Cut it out.
Let's try to.
You're not gonna cry.
Tony,
about
we
it.
apologize for our friend Tom. He's such an imbecile.
I know. Either way, he's a nice guy. I'd like that.
Very nice
Wear it on
guy.
my sleeve. Okay, what can I tell you? So
No, that was it. I was 10 years old. I rode my bicycle down to the new town that we had lived in.
Yep.
And everyone was playing foosball. By the way, they had pretty girls playing it too.
nice.
And other people and different other things.
And so,
Yeah.
do you remember what kind of table it was? What was it, like a Bonzi?
No, it wasn't a TS. It was just a foosball table.
Gotcha. And so when
It was one of them metal ones or whatever they play in Texas.
Gotcha. So when was the first time you actually went to a formal tournament of some kind?
It was first of all, I won the tournament in Oscoda to get sponsored to the $100,000 Pink and Congress tournament. By the way, Tim Burns and Mike Bowers won the tournament.
Okay.
It was the first time I ever saw anyone do a firewall pass.
And
then you adopted the firewall pass at that from that experience. You saw his son pass it.
No, I had the best pass on
figured
the
you were
other
gonna continue.
side. I had the best pass on the other side, but it wasn't working for me. I was playing Furry and Bednar, right? And Furry's just beating the crap out of me, right? On the near side, on my 5-man, which I thought was pretty good. And I just decided, fuck it. I've been practicing this pass. I made like 18,000 passes in a row. After that, and I'll tell you the greatest story you ever heard in your life, right? So Bednar blocks me on 4-4, and I'm crying because I missed the shot, and he just smokes it in, right? So the next tournament, me and Don are playing, who was it? You? Yeah. Tell him I was playing him and Clint Cloyne.
Are you talking about me? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was talking about him. And then I knew for sure when Bowers blocked me the first time I matched ball that I should just wait 4 seconds instead of 3 and ripped along.
Yeah, because he was looking inside the entire time. That was sort of your reputation. You'd work that inside, but in Bowers, you waited that extra second and hit the long. And that weekend in 1982, which was the first win ever for you and Don Shalafo, and we'll talk about Donnie a little bit. He's been a guest on the show. But that was quite a win for you there in L.A. You played us in the losers bracket final, Clint Cloyne and I, in what was my greatest tournament ever. And then
tell them the real story.
Well, what do you mean the real story?
I'm going to crush you if you don't.
The real
story. No, you go ahead and tell it. I'd love to hear your take on it.
All right, Jim Stevens and Clint Cloyne have more character in their pinky finger than most people have. And lots of telling us we're playing winner of the loser bracket. No, it's 2 out of 3. Even Stevens and the other fucking Clint Cloyne from Chicago is going, we don't get to play 2 out of 3 for that. And then after we beat him, right, this is why Stevens and Clint Cloyne are the best almost characters I know. Because afterwards, Slat said, no, we get to play an extra game. And both Stevens and Clint Cloyne said, no, you don't. We argued with you for 25 minutes before this. Am I being mad?
Are you being mad?
No, I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
No, it's honest.
Yeah.
No, that's honest. You can't.
And I'm telling you right now, Jim Stevens and Clint Cloyne has more character than a lot of foosball players will ever have. Shut up.
Okay.
Because it's the truth. It's the truth. It's the truth.
Yeah. No, and the thing came, I was scoring pretty well on Shalafo, but you just out-5'd me. You just killed me on the 5, and that was the difference using that opposite wall passing series. That really, you're one of the 5 best passers in the history of the sport. I think you made it on our list of top 5 passers. But let's talk a little bit about your partner, Don Chalapoum, a guy who has been on the show. In fact, he might have been on.
Dude, Don taught us how to do the thing at that tournament with Fredo and Maloney, because we beat them before we played you.
Yeah.
But either way, he used to just whisper in my ear what play it would be. And then Lafredo said, you can't whisper in his ear. So Don came up immediately. Instead, I'll just tap your foot like a baseball player. Don's a base. And I'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. And I knew where he was going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. And you've seen other teams use that throughout the years. Communication between goalie and forward is really, really smart. We've seen it with Gummison and McMillan, and of course Lafredo and Collignon, or Lafredo with whoever he's playing with. Weidman comes to mind a few years ago. But that's and Donnie was kind of the first guy to kind of do that with you.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Don won the only goalie war tournament ever. First place, $25,000 in Denver.
Wow, 25,000 for goalie wars?
Yeah,
man. I feel like there was one out on the West Coast as well that Gil Jackson.
By the way, he took second with Ben Rivera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At the tournament that me and Brett won the first time. That's novice doubles. Back then, novice doubles was important to win too.
Yeah, no doubt. 1979, I think the man in
who he lost to? Alwood and McQueenie.
Yeah, Macacao and
Rivera. Him, Alwood, McQueenie, dude.
Mm-hmm.
What a match!
So let me ask you this, Tony. While the other guys are relatively silent for some reason, a few years ago, you were inducted into the Table Soccer Hall of Fame. And your speech to this day is one of the best ever, in my opinion.
Because I said foosball family.
Yeah, well, yes, and you can't make this stuff up. And you told some great stories. What are your memories of not only the ceremony, but what it felt like to be put into the Hall of Fame?
It felt great.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It felt.
That's
great.
all you got.
Great.
Yeah. I'm guessing you don't have maybe your memory.
The one guy before I did the speech, right?
Yeah.
This guy from San Francisco comes up to me and says, "Me and the other guys used to play in a foosball game. We tend whoever we are. I used to do it too." And he said, "I used to always want to be you."
Cool.
And then he asked me, "How's it feel?" I said, "Great."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why wouldn't it?
How could it not be?
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Mark
How
Torres,
many little kids have ever pretended
Tony,
you were Michael Jordan or someone else?
Yeah, for sure.
Tony, I got a question for you. Who's your great nemesis? And by that I mean, who gave you the hardest time? Which master gave you the most difficulty beating?
I never thought about that, but if I had to choose one, I'd say Doug Furry.
Why? Talk about it a little bit. What was his deal?
Maybe the best ever.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. By
the way, I crushed him in '82. I crushed him down. Me and fucking Paul Reynolds were playing him in Minnesota, right? He's playing with Bednar, right? And Reynolds said this thing. I never went through a tournament, but I won. I doubled, right? And I told him. And Furry says to me, he looked at me and he said, "You're not God." I said, "But I am your God today."
Love it.
And Bednar.
Yeah. Well, Dynamo was your table.
And I had fucking Reynolds on my team.
Tony, can I ask you to stop dropping F-bombs? Because we might have some kids listening.
I didn't mean to swear.
Yeah, you're like five.
I mean, they already kicked me off twice.
5 F-bombs at this point. We might have kids
I'm sorry.
All right, man.
Sorry.
So let's go back a little bit. So Furry gave you fits and issues. Is there a match that you cherish the most winning?
Furry. I took third in the last TS tournament ever.
The last ever?
I lost the last one ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
I lost to
81.
Gibson and one of my favorite guys in the world, one of the best goalies ever. Yeah.
Great
but
guy.
They used to follow me, right? And I said to him, I used to watch every one of their practices, right? And they would practice like they were professionals. So I decided I should probably do it too.
You mean practice?
Like a professional.
Right.
Like it was your living. Like you're trying to win for your life.
That seemed to
What
work.
did a practice look like for you?
Yes.
All right.
And Furry and Wiswell came up to me one time, right? Because I was just a little smuckster on the planet. And they said, someday, I don't want to play you. I just thought to myself, I just want to play you and beat you.
Yeah, one of the guys that's been a regular on the show, we had him as a guest, and he's also called in a few times, is Mike Green. And of course, he teamed with Johnny Horton back in the 1985 World Championships on Dynamo in Dallas. You faced Horton in all three finals. You were playing with Don Chalifou in doubles against Horton and Green. You won singles, I think, that weekend, but Horton was able to get doubles and mixed doubles, if I'm not mistaken.
So what? He won two, I won one.
Yeah, to talk a little bit about that rivalry and maybe in particular that weekend.
This is the rivalry. After we get done with all the championships, it's him against me. Who's going to win? You don't have your little mixed battle partner. You don't have Don or Green or nothing on your team. You got to beat me now.
Yeah.
It never happened.
Yeah, you took singles from him. But I was there. That was actually my first.
By the way, when I beat him, this is the greatest story for Don's life. I'm playing Horton if I beat Don in singles to be the #1 player in the world again. And Don does exactly what he always does to me. Blocks me and then does a 5-minute shot and makes it in. And you know what he did? He handed me the ball and said, go win, baby. I've never heard or ever. This is something. It's amazing. And then across from me. But Don beat me in singles to play Horton, but he knew I could be Horton. He knew he couldn't. So he gave me the ball and said, go win, baby.
Well, that's an interesting story.
It's a true story.
Apparently, yeah. You could get arrested for that if you do that in the NBA these days. But, you win a match, you win a match. Shifting gears a little bit, that's, you're recognized as one of the great five rows of all time. What is really...
So what? Five rows don't mean nothing, dude. You got to win.
So what?
Win.
Have you ever won a match without a 5-row?
No.
No.
Yeah, no, and I mean, your approach to 5-row, your ability to get that ball moving slowly, to go to the right hole at the right time.
Whatever.
It was kind of a natural skill for you. Yeah, talk a little bit about that if you can.
Well, I always believed that the easiest pass is the easiest one to do.
You gotta write that down. Hold on. Hold on.
The easiest pass.
The easiest pass is the easiest one to do.
All right.
The easiest pass is the easiest one to do.
Facebook puts some motivational quotes. I'm making that the inside.
They kicked me off Facebook.
Mantra.
No, Flair hates this. Hey, Flair hates what I call complicated simplicity. Flair hates it, dude. He's going to beat me up now. The easiest pass you can do is the easiest one.
This is just a bunch of confessing and just cut
it out. I'm going to kill you when I see you. Ask Stevens. Cut it out, you guys. I may not have the best 5-man in the world, but my philosophy is I'm going to do the easiest pass with the most consistency all the time.
Huh.
Interesting.
I know, because it's the easiest one.
And you always use the easiest pass.
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, this is mind blowing because I'm
just
done
saying,
the
I have
easiest
9 world
pass,
championships, 2 gold
and I have
medals,
0, and I never do the
28
easiest
other
pass.
championships. Do you believe that the easiest pass you can do is the easiest one consistently every time?
Which one? How do I find out which one is the easiest?
It's just
one?
a firewall pass. You throw it over there and then hit it over the near side
and catch it.
I
gotta admit, I'm an absolute moron.
By the way, tell Stevens I can do this on any cable. Not
tell
from
him.
Europe or any other.
I'll call him as
one.
soon as this show is over, and I'll tell him.
All right, now
I got my number, Clay.
bad word. I'm sorry, you guys.
No, that's true, and that's one of the things
I mean it. No, I promised my sister I wouldn't.
Well, she won't be
mad at me
about hearing this, but it's okay. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's your show.
So
Hold on, I gotta ask Tony. Let me ask you another question while we still have
Go
you.
ahead. Go ahead.
Here's my question. I asked this question to all the real winners that have come on the show, and there's been a dozen or so. Why were you able to execute under pressure and when your competitors weren't? What was going through your mind when you had to make a big pass or a big shot? How did you keep strength in those moments to execute?
Nothing other than trying to just execute what I was trying to do. If I tried to think about all that other crap you just told me, I wouldn't have been able to do it. It's like making a putt on the 18th hole.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was just trying to do what I thought would win.
You focused on the execution at hand in the moment at hand. Yeah,
That's it. Execution is. I'm going to tell you this, you guys, like 10 more thousand. And if you ask me again, all us done is try to execute what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you don't have to worry about it anymore.
How did you block out distractions when you're playing with things around you? How did you just block all that out?
Because all I'm trying to do is execute.
Right.
There is no distractions. You have distractions. You're announcing the thing. All I'm trying to do is roll the ball over and execute.
Yeah, you kept it simple.
On defense, by the way, on defense, you execute. On every part of the game, you execute. Not just me passing by scoring, or Don blocking, or Brendan blocking. Execution is the whole game.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Hey, we have a call coming in from Mike Green. Mike, thanks.
Oh, Mike Green, my best friend.
Yeah, Mike Green. Thanks for joining FoosTalk Live. You're on with Tony Bacon.
I figured I should call in and save you guys, man. What the heck is going on, Tony Bacon?
Thank you.
Whoa.
You noticed? Mike, you noticed?
Tony, why are you talking about Doug Furry, man? I made you run like a schoolgirl when I played you.
Shut up. Doug Furry's made me the best player ever.
Yeah. If it wasn't for me, you would have won like 8 more world titles with my stupid pass used to say. Remember?
No comment.
Hey, ask Mike Green that when Dumas was up there in their house, right? If they didn't put a statue on there in front of their fireplace that said, "Bacon, we got to beat you somehow."
We had a stickman figure about 12 inches high, and we played 8 hours a day to beat this guy. And when we were done, we would kick it all across the room and stomp on it. That's how we practice for Bacon.
I love it. That's great.
When I played Bacon, I think I told him when I was on the radio with the 84 World's only team that beat him. He'll tell you about it.
So
my star, we play the guy. That's when the guy says, "Who's Chris Green and Mike Starcheski?" Right before we destroyed them.
I knew who they were. So did Don. Yeah. I knew who those guys were. They were the only guys that beat us that day.
Let me tell you a secret about Tony.
Or whatever.
This is the reason I could beat Tony.
You were the
Tony,
only guys that beat us, in '84. You know that. You and fucking Starcheski.
You know why? You guys had a tab, but we
As soon as
realized
we beat you and Starcheski, I looked at Donna and said, "There's no way we're gonna lose. We just beat the best team in the tournament, the only team that beat us first." Do you believe
Fredo
that?
came up to me on Dynamo and says, "Mike, how do you block this guy? He's beating me in singles every time." I said, "His straight goes 3/4. He don't have one."
Oh.
And then Todd started beating him in singles.
Hey, Mike, thanks for jumping in and trying to save us. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right, man.
But we
Y'all have
talked
a
about a
great
little
night.
bit about that, the great rivalry with you and
Let's
Johnny
talk about gold medals and why, when you go to Europe, you don't kneel.
Tom, how are we looking on time?
Come on, you have to. Or I'm
I think we're getting close to end of time here. But Tony, this is great to have you on and some reminiscence about the great old days. We'd love to have you back sometime soon. We'll keep the door open for you. Love to have you back soon.
Thanks, Tony. We'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thank you, man.
Tony Bacon on FoosTalk Live. Of course, being another one of our legendary players coming online, and
the legendary episode, no doubt about
legendary.
it.
Actually, we have another call here. I have my therapist is on the line.
Tyrone, by chance?
Does he do group therapy, by the way? That's what I want. Group therapy?
Isaiah.
Yeah. I think
Tony lives in California. There's a lot to do out in California, a lot of good times to be had. And
sure.
I'm sitting on the veranda there overlooking the beach and sipping on a margarita and having a nice time. But thanks for Tony, the Hall of Famer, to join us here tonight. We did get I think we were able to sort of glean a few little nuggets out of what he had to say.
Oh, there was gleaning. There were nuggets.
I'm ready to break. Let me put it this way: I started a fast at 7:00. I'm ready to break it for a wedding cake and a wedding cake and a bottle of Jack, like right now.
I never have 3 beers on this show, but tonight I've actually thought about quitting drinking entirely.
Yes. I'm with you, Jim. Well, it's you know what?
We do have a few minutes. Yeah, what's up, Tom?
I was just going to say, in foosball, you always have to think in the moment, and that's precisely what we're doing. Is we're thinking in the moment.
That's why I say, when in doubt, shoot a slingshot, and that's what just happened.
We just slingshotted him.
I think some of our listeners want to charge us for the last 30 minutes of listening to the show.
The good news.
However, we would love to. We got a little time here. We'd love to field some questions from those of you listening on Podbean. Just type them there in the chat, and we can have a look at them. And Tom, you can deliver them if you get them. And any questions about foosball, about the future of foosball, about the past of foosball, the history of foosball, anything else about any of us, ask away. We'd love to spend a little time here. We got a few minutes to kill.
I want to talk about. Tonight's top 5. I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, but I know I kind of poke jokes like behind the scenes, about top 5s. But tonight's was my favorite. Like, loved
it's great
hearing you guys. I love that it was 10 different people, and some of those were on the list that I made just in case there was time to talk about it, which there wasn't. But this is like one of my favorite conversations to have because I'm a newer player, and by newer I mean I've only started playing in the last half a dozen years or whatever. So some of these guys I only know by name, and some of them I don't even know that much, and I've never seen them play. Mm-hmm. They're not on video, but it's fun hearing stories and.
Well, dude, listen, can we hear your top 5? You have a top 5. Let's hear it.
Well, 3 of them were already mentioned: Terry Moore, Fred, and Tom Spear, and for different reasons. I've seen Tom Spear play on video a couple times, and obviously I've seen Fred more than I've seen anybody else because I don't know if you know this, Mark, but when I started playing, I was shooting a front pin, and not only was he the best, but he was the only one shooting that. So I watched all his stuff trying to learn how to shoot it. But Terry Moore, so I have a weird angle on this one because I know who he is in foosball. I've watched a lot of his matches on video, but I've played video games with Terry Moore quite a bit. We played Fortnite, which is a popular.
I heard he's horrible. Keep going.
Yeah, I won't. I will not correct you on that. So, but I'm not going to say he's good or bad. It's kind of beside the point for me. But I played with Blake Robertson, Billy Pappas, Bill Aracas, Terry Moore. All those guys play together, and Brandon Moreland plays. A few other play, Jason Wicks. Like they all play Fortnite, and for a while I was playing with them. And you get to know people when you play video games with them. You get to know them in a different way than the masses do. And Terry Moore, some of the most enjoyable moments I had playing a video game was when I was playing with Terry and Billy on the same squad together. And they're a blast to play with. The personality is way bigger than shows up on screen, in a foosball match. And aside from just how good and dominant he was for the time that he was on top, it was just kind of like, this guy's like super fun. Like everybody talks trash behind the scenes. I don't even think people realize even Jim Stevens himself is a massive trash talker when he's on the table, right, with his friends or whatever. Yeah, people think that the Jim is all proper and all this stuff, and it's an act. It's for the microphone. That was kind of a joke, but for the most part, like the proper professionalism, all this stuff just goes away because it's just two buddies playing foosball, and that's one of the things that I love the most about foosball. And so I didn't know that is how Terry Moore's like personality was until I was playing games with him. So I missed that kind of stuff being around, being in the game. So I don't know. So those three you guys already talked about them. Two others for me, and of course they're newer because I'm a newer fan of the game. One is my friend Dustin Gatliff, who it was a bummer to see him quit cold turkey. I think younger players, I've said this a million times, is like this is great for the game to get younger people in the game. And I think he was around late 20s or early 30s when he quit, and he was still going up and learning the game. And I hate to see that kind of person just tap out and quit. But the other one that I'm actually surprised that nobody mentioned him at all was Kevin Walker.
Oh yeah, Kevin,
the New York
absolutely.
area.
I can speak to that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and Tom, you know him better than I do. I've only seen him play. I've never met him or anything like that.
Right.
But his game is so I don't want to say basic because it's really good.
Right.
But it's not like watching Tony or Ryan. It's not flashy or anything.
Nope.
Kind of reminds me of I just drew a total blank on the guy's name. Is it Brian Jones? Am I saying?
Yeah. Brian Jones.
Yeah. They're the most A-B players you'll see, but they are really, really, it's a strong capital A and a strong, bold capital B, and you're not beating them. They are insanely good at the things that they do.
I can speak to Kevin's philosophy, and the philosophy is that I'm going to do the same thing again and again and again, and I'm going to beat you with it.
Yeah, and you can't do anything about it.
Right. Exactly. So,
if it gets to a point of where you're just going to try to flip a coin with him, he's still going to know what the coin's going to end up.
His patience is beyond anything I've ever seen. Now, defending against him, there are people that of course, were giving me advice because, of course, hey, he's unstoppable. But here's what you can do. He does have certain tendencies. So, I like in a 4-4 situation, he's always going to go long. And his pull shot always.
It's a crazy long, by the way. Good luck.
He's got a really good. That's maybe the difference between him and Brian Jones in particular. Is that Kevin Walker's got a booming long.
Oh,
he really does.
Scary. It really is scary.
Yep. And he'll hit dead bar. I mean, truly dead bar. You give him.
Yeah, this is a kid that Greg Mendel showed me maybe when he was 15, 14, and said this kid's going to be really good.
Right.
And he was right. Yeah, he was really good.
He was a prodigy of Greg Mendel, and Greg did a great job taking him on the road. And I mean, Kevin's brain is so organized, and this is his life too. I've been to his house. Everything's in its place. He's very. He's kind of like.
What does his pantry look like? Are all the labels facing the same way?
We're talking pantries here on FoosTalk Live tonight.
But Clay, I want to get back to you in a second because I have a question about someone on my list that you're acclimated to, and he kind of plays into this conversation.
I already know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but Rudnicki and Rick Lucas and Stork, Randy Stork. There were these dudes. They were all. There was Randy Stark and Randy Stork. Remember Stork in Southern California?
Well, that was his name was actually Trace Eric.
Trace Eric. Whatever his second name was, right? Trace. Correct. He played with Miles Yoshida. I'm talking about dudes that were all Ryan Moore's height, and they all had the booming dead row long. I mean, Mark Rudnicki, Rick Lucas. these guys would crush the ball. They'd go dead bar when you were on it. You heard Mike Green. I know it was God, it was not Maloney. It was someone else from Colorado talking about these guys going long even when you're posted. So there have been iterations. I love Kevin Walker's game. Don't get me wrong. His 5-bar is pretty sweet.
Sure.
I think his up looks a little bit different than his down, but overall, I've seen him play Masters to the kilt, to the clutch, in open doubles, always at sniffing fifth with his great goalie from New York. But I'm going into this because if you watch Charles Britt play in the 90s, man, that booming 5-bar long with the lateral speed, like a perfect shot like Lafredo, you get to see Britt play every once in a while, like these draws, Clay. I haven't seen him like really except for play when he wasn't even shooting his pull shot. Tell me a little bit about your exposure to Charles Britt. Can you still see flashes? Or is he just
started? No, he started playing again locally a couple years ago. And so he was one of those players that when I started, I heard his name all the time because I'm in Dallas.
Yeah.
And everybody just, you know how it is with people who used to play.
Yeah.
It's like they're better and better. Every story that gets told is a little bit better than the one before, and to the point where it's just like, come on, this guy's he's good.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I saw, and I never even saw him play on video or never saw a picture or anything. The first time I met him at a local DYP, like he's just like this. I don't want to say sheepish, but like he's like this little like friendly, guy. And it's like if I wasn't introduced to him, I would have thought he was just another like bar like patron just there curious about foosball, because he didn't walk into the foos area with this confidence of I am one of the best that you've ever seen in Dallas. It wasn't anything like that, and arrogance is prominent in foosball, especially at that level. So I just had no idea, it was just kind of strange. And then the first time I actually saw him play, and we talk about this, me and Jason Wicks and a few of the other guys here locally, every time we see him play, it's just like, it's amazing to see him play. Cause he does things. I don't know how old he is. He's older than I am, but he does things that someone his age, you wouldn't expect them to be able to do in terms of reflexes, in terms of just pure raw skill. And it's something about the way that he does it. It just looks so natural and effortless, and it's just, I don't know. I don't know another word to say, and it sounds corny, but like to watch him move the rods and catch the ball and do these things, it's like beautiful. Like the way that he shoots the shot is just beautiful. Yeah. And that's the only word that I can really, and even at whatever age he is, after all these years of not having seriously competed, it's still there. And he's like, if you ever talk to Tony Spredeman about like, stuff like this, Tony would tell you like, I'm not the most athletic or whatever. I practice harder and I do, but I'm not like the most naturally gifted. Like Tony will tell you, like Ryan and Billy, like those guys are talented in different kinds of ways. They're just different. And Tony has to work for what he has. And he's obviously the best, but it's a different kind of talent that he has.
It's drive.
And Charles Britt is one of those who he already had the talent before he even played foosball, probably. Like he's probably good at, if he picks up a new game, he's probably good at it. But hand him a set of darts and he's never thrown darts, he'll probably get bullseyes, first night.
Seriously.
He's probably really good at like skee ball. He's probably really good.
Pinball. You could probably crush a pinball machine.
Well,
exactly.
This is a guy who had a very short career, but a two-time Masters singles champion, won the 1991 National Open Doubles Championship, won the kickoff that same year, mixed doubles title, second at the World Championships in mixed doubles, third in open singles at the 92 kickoff. I mean, this was a guy that was on a Hall of Fame trajectory. He really was. And then just stopped playing for whatever reason, real life, whatever, job, girlfriend, who knows, right? But a guy that really could have been something, could have been a Hall of Fame player. As it is, no, he's not going to be a Hall of Fame player. But if that short sample set is quite impressive.
If you get a chance to get on the Inside Foos TV page, it's also on YouTube. It's the 1992 Worlds. It was the year before Jim started. And then number 3, he's playing Benti from Italy in open singles, and you see his pull shot. You'll see what I'm talking about. He is a super talent. He's a super talent with a booming pull shot. I think better than Kevin Walker's pull shot in '92.
Yeah. Okay.
You got to look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And a more seasoned player. I mean, certainly playing in that Dallas-Fort Worth area back then when it was so competitive, or just the state of Texas in general. I mean, he came out of that as an athletic player, a guy that was very competitive and obviously very skilled on the table, and was a great player. It's funny you bring up Benti for the second time tonight. our flashback tonight was the Belgian win at the gold medal at the World Cup. A member of that Belgian team, a man who has Belgian citizenship as well, Giuliano Bentivoglio. So Benty was on that team with Fred that won that 2012 World Cup. And a great dude, and a guy that's almost 70 years old and remains a factor on nearly every table when I see him play in Europe.
Really? At 70?
Yeah, late 60s. Yes.
Jeez, that's
great.
well.
I had to holler at
I had the pleasure of being inducted into the International Hall of Fame in 2019 in Spain. And with me up there on the podium being inducted at the same time was Giuliano Bentivoglio. And the guy that I've played with before, drew him in a draw, your partner. We took second, lost to Fred at the World Championship event on Tech Ball back in the late 2000s. Great guy, great player, still doing it, keeps it simple, can do it on every table. And just one of the great all-time foosball people, and I was proud to go into that International Hall of Fame with the great Giuliano Bentivoglio. So interesting, he came up a couple of times tonight.
Yeah, no,
right?
it's I think this whole issue, of course, of what it takes. I mean, what it actually, the essence of this. If you break this down as a forensic scientist, how in the world do you become the world's best? And there's several different ways of looking at this, because you've got Billy Pappas, different player from Ryan Moore, different player from Tony Sprademan. They all have a different formula. So how many formulas are there? And
yeah,
what is it?
That's a great point. That's a really great point. And I mean, if you take a cross section of the top 10 all-time players, whatever subjective list you have, each of them had a different path. Each of them has a little different approach. Right. Each of them has their own little bit of magic, right? Because there's some things that are just inexplicable. You can't explain about these guys' games. What is it that allows them to do these things in these situations? And they're all savants. They're all geniuses in their own right.
Sure.
And I'm not sure there's a recipe. I mean, obviously you got to work harder in your game. You got to do the reps. You got to play against better players. You got to do those sorts of things. But then what is it? What is that residue that is created that takes them to that next level?
Lots of really good players, but you get to be great. What is the ingredient? There must be one ingredient that's common to them all. One or two ingredients.
I don't know. There might, if there's any thread that binds them, and I think that this changes over time, right? Because that's why you get spurts. You know who I was just thinking of right now that's not on my list that could have been on my list is someone like Ron Cipiora.
Okay,
a great player. Yeah, a great player out of Southern California, right? And so, but we talk about all these different things. What is the soup of variables? Well, some of these guys had tremendous hand-eye coordination. Yes. Some of these guys had incredible muscle memory. Some of these guys have incredible muscle memory attached to like photographic eidetic memory. Think about the strength in having an incredible muscle memory, and then attached to it is an incredible memory period. Like someone like Johnny Horton, who I've had opportunities to speak to. We got to get on the show. He'll talk about like remembering certain types of movements that he tracked in his memory and was able to, he knew where a player was going because 3 years ago he played that player and this person did two things in a row and he memorized it.
Wow.
So this is the weird, but there are plenty of people who had that nuance that still didn't win. They still didn't win because then you had to add the additional big thread that I think that binds them. It's the ability, and I asked this question for the very specific reason. How do you handle the pressure? I've asked it to a dozen different people, and guess what? They all
drops. Yeah, whose heart rate drops in those situations, right?
Yes, exactly. And guess how? They answer that differently too. But there is some running similarity, whether it's how you do displace from the stress of the moment. And like Midori will tell you, she focuses on something she knows she can execute. That's not unlike what Bacon just said.
Right.
And then someone like, and then Murray will tell you that he spreads it all over the place. So he's feeling a lot of angst. He's feeling a lot of stress. He takes control of the situation. You know what he does? He disseminates it to the ref and to the audience and to the opposition. He talks to himself out loud. He murmurs. So all these winners have a way to manage the pressure. Even Lewis, right? Lewis is very, very headstrong about focusing on the moment and ensuring he's got. There is a running theme. It's the psychology of how you deal with the pressure in the moment, and the people that do not get lost in that moment, that are fearless in that moment, that are not afraid of the moment, they execute. They execute when it matters, and those are the winners.
Right. And the timing. You know, the absolute timing. It's like every good comedian knows, when the punchline should come. When should you shoot that ball? You're sitting on it. Yeah. How much time? That's the thing. I go back to Kevin. He counts. He counts. He told me he counts.
Well, Bacon just said right now. Bacon just said that he completely ravaged somebody on the inside, and he knew with certainty if he waited 4 seconds and shot along. So he built this narrative up, and on match ball, not unlike Lafredo will know with certainty something's going to be there when he needs it to be there. And so he has the presence of mind. I'm going to wait 4 seconds. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it with authority. I'm going to dictate terms. It's going to work. And he does it, and it happens. So he wills it into existence by listening to himself. That takes composure and poise to decide. Right, that's it. Right
under
there.
pressure.
Yeah, and even just to get into position to compete, one of the things over this past year I've been homeschooling my kids, right? And I'm not going to be able to maybe do the textbooks the way the schools do, but one thing I can teach them, because it's something I learned early. I'm basically self-educated. It's how to learn. How do you learn? How do you make these small incremental adjustments, whatever you're focused on? If your desire is to be excellent at something, be small, you learn from a situation, whether it's competing against better players, pressure, whatever, and you make these small incremental improvements each time. You keep doing that, and you keep doing that, and you keep doing that. And
hey, Tom.
Yeah,
there we are. And if you have that ability to do that, you can continue to build and build and build until you can put yourself in position. And then that's where the magic takes over. That's where whatever it is, this residue that's been created by all that takes footing and allows you to win.
You're saying you're looking at the minutiae, the smaller details that add up to the bigger picture.
Great. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
You should be in radio.
It is it crossed my mind once or twice, but the money sucks. So, yeah.
But it sure is a lot of fun, especially on nights like tonight. And you just never know what's going to happen. The unpredictability of it, and it runs the gamut, doesn't it? And, there are times when you have just brilliant shows and other times where strength comes off the rails.
I think that, certainly we live in the world here at FoosTalk Live because it is live. And there are probably people wondering, oh, you guys are just recording this and playing it back, right? No. What comes out our mouth, Mark, stays. There's no taking it back. and I counted tonight. We had a few moments, but that's what makes it thrilling. That's what makes it different from other forms. Because I went through the shall we say, the generation that came up, probably the last generation of broadcasters that did it live, because I was right on the edge when automation came in with software where you could voice track everything. You could record it and then play it back later, even a month later, for your show, and walk away. And of course, if you made a mistake, you go back and redo it. But with live radio, it's a completely different feel.
Yeah, it really is.
Taking it back.
But I do want to harken back to our top fives tonight. It
Yes.
was really cool having 10 different names, getting to get the perspectives, and we've had a few other names come up. Ron Cipiora occurred to me. Obviously, Charles Britt, Doug Furry, all of these different names, and there are quite a few others. I'm sure we could come up with. But that's what makes this show great, is that we can focus on history. We can kind of illuminate things that happened in the past. And much like baseball, I'm such a baseball fan, and the history of baseball is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that same sense with foosball. Obviously, the $1 Million Tour of the 70s was amazing on so many levels. The stories we continue to hear about it are just magical, right? And then, of course, what happened after that, right on up till today. But there's that same sort of feeling of history in context with foosball as there is with baseball and other things. And that really, Mark, I know you put some time and effort into your top five tonight, and as did I. And it's a lot of fun to talk history and bring our perspective to these things.
So I got a question for both of you guys, because you've been at this for a while. You've seen, you've been on the periphery watching what's happening and being good observers. So once TS crashed, was it a collective post-traumatic stress disorder that destroyed this sport?
I don't know about destroyed. I mean, it did destroy it for many people. The top TS stars as have been documented on the show. I think there was destruction for a lot of the rest of us who just love foosball. We were devastated. Yeah. But then something else came along, and we loved foosball so much, and we weren't making a living at it. It wasn't our lives, although it was to some degree. But it wasn't, as it's just earth-shattering as it was for so many of these top players. For us, it was, oh, that really sucks. That stinks, man. But oh, look, there's a tournament coming up here in LA. It's only an $8,000, but still, it's something. We love to play foosball.
Yep.
But for the most part, as far as the TS players were concerned, the attrition rate was high. I'm sure you'd agree with that, Mark. How many players? 10%, maybe 20% survived to move on. And then here's another name that came to mind tonight, Mark, for me. It was the late Rick Martin. Rick Martin, one of the great players of the 70s, no doubt. 81 comes, the crash. He stops playing for the same reasons that we've talked about with all the others, Bowers and with Maloney and with others that, where it was so devastating for them. But then Rick Martin comes back, 25 years later, and gets back out and starts playing again and competing and loving it and loving the community and finding his love again. And there's other examples of this as well, of players who played in the 70s, took 20 years off, and then came back and played again. It would have been fun to see Doug Furry do that, or Brent Bednar, or Mike Bells, or some of the great players, and Dan Kaiser. But Martin was one of those, and he found his love for foosball again. And there's been a few other cases of that as well. And so some of those players, 90% of them that fell off the cliff after 81, a few of them came back and refound their love for it, and some of them continue to play today.
Sure. No, I
think one of the things that I don't know another example except for an industry when a whole industry changes. For example, the closest thing would be if you were manufacturing, if you're with 3M or manufacturing some type of, or I think of like Blockbuster Video.
Yes.
If the bottom falls out, man,
yes.
If you did not evolve
Kodak
with technology or time,
Kodak,
then you are out of a craft or skill. I don't know if there's a precedent in sports.
By the way, you have to watch the it's a documentary called The Last Blockbuster on
Netflix. I've seen that.
It's great.
But let me give you something else that happens that's very unique about foosball. So I start playing in the late 80s, and all of my friends that play, that commit to the sport, that put the hours in and love the sport, they have this lingering hope that it's going to return to the 70s. And it stays with us. We play every year. We think there's an opportunity. And so there's so many of us that fall in love with the dream of things going back to the 70s, and we carry it. Some of my friends still carry it for decades. And we still have this like wanting that, something's going to happen, sponsors, promoters. And through childhood, I'm talking about from the time I'm like 17 through like 20 or something, I have this pipe dream that in that time, there's going to be millions of dollars pumped into foosball. And it can be something that we all do. Maybe I don't have to go to college. At some point, I could just play foosball. Of course, it didn't happen during that time. And we are in a space now where as a if I might say so myself, a successful business guy, you got to have the people that create those scenarios for it to happen. I'm no longer sitting around hoping that someone's going to drop $5 million in our sport.
Right.
God bless you, Brendan, for taking your best shot. There's got to be, the community's got to figure out how to take some inroads in that direction.
So where I was going,
hey Mark,
with this,
I got a. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going. What I was going with this whole idea of PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. What's the cure? What do we do to overcome this? Because it's an affliction, and we all have this kind of like inferiority complex around the sport.
Yeah, it's a great call. I think giving players and promoters something to really aspire to and something to get excited about. I think it's something that we can. And by the way, folks, make sure you join us next week for a special episode of FoosTalk Live. We have a couple of big announcements, and we also have apparently a special guest coming in here. We got a few minutes left, about 17 minutes left in the show. And Clay, you've lined somebody up.
All right, they line themselves up. This is one of the things that I love about Discord is if you've been on the show before, the invitation is always there to come back. And
yes,
I heard
the door's open.
And I'm afraid to ask him what his IPA of choice is this week. But
I don't think that's the biggest fear for this episode. I think is in the past. So
yeah, for sure.
I didn't ask him if he's on the toilet. So in his defense,
I know who this is now. Okay, you've revealed. You've given enough information now. The who's who. Tommy, thanks for coming back and joining us. Tom, I really appreciate you being with us.
Hey guys, let me just say flush, and then we'll go from there to get that out of the way.
Wow.
So, no, hey, I don't always get a chance to listen live, but tonight I was listening live, and good show, and you guys are killing me. I had to call in. You're killing me. You keep talking about this 92, well, not specifically, but you're talking about Charles Britt's 2 Masters titles, and his second one was against me. And
Nice.
it's like you keep talking about it. It's like, I got to tell this story. I don't know, So number one, it's the finals of Masters singles, and they call it on table like 7. It's off in the middle of the room. It's not even in a finals pit area or anything like that. So here I am, I'm still a novice level player playing Charles Britt, legend, already won, a Masters title. And so he was already well known, monster pole shot, smooth, awesome 5-bar. So, I'm just battling my way as a, scrappy novice player. And I get to the finals against this guy. I'm up 2 games to nothing on him. And all of a sudden, and I wish I called in when you had Dave Currington on, one of my buddies, ratted out Charles Britt because he wasn't wearing a collared shirt. Back in the day, all pros had to wear a collared shirt. Here he is playing a novice player, not wearing a collared shirt. And here comes Dave, just storming over there, every bit of him storming over there and yelling at Charles, fellow Texan, you're not wearing a collared shirt. He stops the whole match. I've got all this flow and momentum. I'm riding the wave. I'm on my way to a big time title here, and all of a sudden Dave just stopped it in its tracks. He's screaming at Britt, telling him, "You're not wearing a collared shirt. You need to have one on." And Charles is looking around bewildered, like, "Hey, can I borrow your shirt?" So Charles, I mean, he's probably 150 pounds, skinny guy. Jeez. The guy next to him is like 250 pounds, 6'5", takes off his shirt. "Yeah, here, Charles," gives him his shirt. So Charles wearing this shirt going down to his knees, freaking steaming mad because he just got called out, in the middle of a finals. And he took it out on me the rest of the way. His long all of a sudden got better. I was blocking his long. It's like I watched him play. It's like, all right, this guy's got a good long. Don't give him a long. But then all of a sudden, I couldn't do much about it. He had a couple straights and middles, and all of a sudden, longs were wide open. And this guy just 3 straight at me, long. It was really a bad moment in my career.
Man.
Because every time it's like, that dagger just kept going in deeper and deeper. Every time you guys mentioned this 2-time Masters champ, stop it already.
Dude, Tom, that Masters singles final won you matches too. And let me tell you how. I was like 18 at the time, and the whisperings were happening. The whisperings were this 18-year, this novice was in the finals of Master Singles, Tom Muir. All those whisperings were happening, and all we're saying is that we're going to smash that guy. We were building ourselves up to play you as a novice and a pro, so that we knew you were the big name coming around. And trust me, that your reputation preceded you from that point on, getting to the finals of Master Singles. I wish I was there. I wasn't. I would have loved to see Britt wearing Dave Currington shirts to beat you.
That shirt was so big. There is some video out there of it, somewhere of it, but it is kind of comical to see him wearing that big giant shirt. But no, it was horrible because I was cruising to a win, and then I wind up losing. I was so mad because that was a single elimination deal, so there wasn't any double elimination. It was just that's it. That was the finals.
And I promise you, if it was a year or two later, it would have been on table number 1. I would not have allowed it on table number 7. That's for sure.
No, you weren't involved. It was right before you. But it did motivate me. I mean, it knew how close I was to being there, and I turned pro or master, I guess, or pro, whatever it was after that, and I went on to 94. I think I had some success in 93, but and 92. I think I had some other wins and some other. I think I beat Tommy Atkinson in the finals at Georgia State that year, and Terry Moore for the loser bracket. So that's a pretty significant win. Double dipping Tommy Atkinson, that was pretty significant.
Yeah, those state championships in those years, early 90s, mid 90s, were monster turnouts. You'd have Murray, you'd have Moore, you'd have Atkinson. That
was the Southern swing. That's where guys came down through Georgia to Florida up to North Carolina, and that's when Terry was driving the van. He had Mars and Tommy and Evan and Russ King. I mean, that was those were pretty strong tournaments back in the day.
You get hundreds. you get hundreds of people at those tournaments, and you get way more pros at those tournaments. It'd be great.
And you had those regional pros that were top level players in their area. They just didn't tend to go to the big tournaments. They just hit the regionals. So you'd have all these strong Georgia players that didn't tour a lot, strong Florida players that didn't tour a lot, and the strong North Carolina and that region. And then you had Louisiana, Mississippi, and all the southern Texas and all that. They were coming out as well. So I mean, that was a time where some serious players.
Yeah, and incredible competition at those as well. I mean, I remember early in the days of Inside Foos, I'd worked some of those state championships, and some of those finals. There was almost coming to blows on some of them. The competitiveness at those events was really off the charts. And so, Tom, you probably heard, maybe you heard our top 5 tonight of players that we wish had continued playing. Do you have a few names? Do you have a few names for us of players that you recall that you would love to have seen continue? Maybe their careers came to an end from retirement or life changes or whatever, but didn't continue. Do you have anybody that occurs to you?
Funny, because I was listening live when you were going over that, and immediately my wife Leslie was right there in the room, and I immediately rattled off the names, and I said, and it was no particular order, but except for the first couple, was like Fred, Terry, Horton, Spear, and I was literally just rattling these names off. I was like, these guys were right off the top of my head that would love to have seen them continue playing, and pretty much I heard between your 10 different answers, which is bizarre, but it is what it is. I think 7 of my top, or at least 100%, all 7 of the ones that I rattled off were in your top 20.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, I pretty much agreed, and even, I mean, we'll call Mark's list an honorable mention list for the most part. But those are good too, because Mark likes to dig deep into the past and stuff, and he's a student of the historical foosball past, and those are great names. I just can't I can't relate so much to some of the older names because I wasn't around then. I started playing in the late 80s, early 90s, so I didn't know all those former TS and Dynamo players. So it's kind of tough for me, but just from my own skill set, I mean, I would love to see Tom Spear keep going, and who knows what Horton would have done if he got was able to continue playing through the 2000s. I mean, if Lafredo can be the journeyman that he is, I mean, I think Johnny, he'd still be a relevant factor right now. Terry, obviously, I mean, he was still at the top of his game when he stopped playing. So who knows how many more titles he would have won. So yeah, there's many more names actually we can go through.
Is there more? Is there more nobility or dignity of quitting at the top? Saying, "Hey, I've done it all. I'm done."
I think at some point players would love to hit that grand slam and walk off and never play again and just have that legend live on.
Sure.
But at the same time, we I took a 2-year break from 98 to 2000, and I missed that competition. I needed that competition, and I replaced it with golf and other competitions, but I was still competing. But I wasn't able to compete at the level that I was used to, doing other things. So it's like I was, those competitive juices were flowing, and it's like after 2 years, I just had to come back. I had to play. Right. So I would love to go out on top and call it quits, but you can only sit back so long and relish in your history. At some point you still want to get out there and compete. So I would actually, we'll see what happens, but it's something that I would want to keep doing. I want to keep playing and competing because I just have to.
For sure. And as players like Lafredo or Benti, as we talked about, when do you reach that point where you kind of have to retire, where you're no longer competitive at the open level? Who knows? While we have you, Tom, last year, a little over a year now, obviously have been very different for all of us. But we're starting to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're starting to see tournaments, in this country starting to be held again. Some of them being done smartly, but not in Europe yet. But we're starting to begin. We just heard the cancellation of Garlando World Championships in July. That's not going to happen there, so it's been pushed back a little longer in Europe. and of course, with your international perspective, with your being part of the ITSF, with your experience here in this country as a top player and as an official, are you keeping your game in shape? Are you preparing kind of for moving forward with the Rules Commission? Where are you right now as we kind of look ahead in 2021 and then eventually into 2022 for the next World Cup, and everything's sort of building towards that World Cup with events coming, with the qualifications coming? Everything's going to have to be very concentrated as we look at 2022 and the World Cup. But where are you? Are you still kind of working with the ITSF a little bit to prepare for that? Are you working on your game to prepare for competing? Talk a little bit about where you are right now as we look ahead.
Well, we had the Florida State. This year we had the Florida State. It was a pretty successful tournament, well attended, very well attended actually. Really, we had top players. I don't know, 7 or 8, maybe 9 pro masters. It was really a strong tournament. But second year in a row, and this was actually the second meaningful tournament I've played in a year, because last year's Florida State was the last meaningful tournament, and after that was all the COVID business and lockdowns and this and that, and then finally things opened up, and so this past Florida State was my second major meaningful tournament in 2 years, and in both tournaments, I did pretty much horribly. It was, really poor performance on my part. So, I recently, it's funny you ask, because I kind of just, stopped. I haven't touched my table in a while, and then since then, and I'm like, I really got to reevaluate my game. So that's where I'm at now. Is my game right now? I'm just reevaluating it and restructuring and refocusing on what I need to do to be competitive without playing weekly tournaments, which helps. We've got a strong competitive player base here, and being able to compete every week at locals, has always kept my game in shape. Because I don't play a lot of tour tournaments. I play maybe 3 or 4. Florida State, Texas, Colorado, maybe Maryland if I can get out there, and maybe slip in one other or something, or an international or something. Is kind of what I do. So having not been able to play so much, my game's been slipping, and so I've been kind of rededicating, reinventing my 5-bar. I did that once before in 04-05, and it produced a pretty good win for me there, a good year in 05.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's kind of where I'm at now, is I'm getting back to reinventing my 5-bar series a little bit, restructuring it more or less, and then my shot, just working on speed. So I'm actually working on my shot. I've been every day now just shooting probably 50 to 100 pole shots at least, just trying to get the speed back, and just firing it long, and just trying to get that feel back, because I realized after that last Florida State, my game it just isn't there where I have confidence in what I'm doing.
Tom, let me help you out. If it's time for pasture,
yeah,
I want you to start working. Listen, I want you to start working. I want you to start working on your. Hey, listen. Hey, listen.
That you're talking about.
I want you to work on your goalie fundamentals, and I'll hook you.
Yeah, well, there's that too. I got a little kid I can sponsor here.
Yeah, that's right.
I could be a really good goalie for.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get.
I see where you're going, man. I see where you're going. I could be the next. Well, I don't know. I won't say that.
Tom Lafredo.
No, I can't go there. I could be a halfway decent goalie playing for a phenom or something.
Wow.
But no, I still got enough in the tank to where I could be a solid forward, and I can pull out a win here and there. If I work on my game, that's the thing.
Yeah,
I got to work on my game, but I'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, great to hear your voice tonight, buddy. It's great for you to come on. It's sort of that cleanup hitter to bring us home.
He's like,
you're killing me, man. It just kept hurting every time. It's like, oh, Britt, 2 times master. Stop it!
It's no mystery he's not on your list, by the way. It's no mystery. Now you would prefer never to see him play again. So
yeah,
no, he's awesome. No, I saw Charles at I don't know, last Texas State I went to, but one of the last 2 I saw him there and chatted with him a little bit. No, he's always an awesome dude. Yeah, great game too. It is, honestly, it's a shame that he hadn't continued playing regularly, because he was a solid player. And
right.
I'm sure he would have won some titles.
It's the shirt, though, man. The shirt. That's what beat
long
you.
Shirt. Darn,
that shirt
it got
beat
me.
you, buddy. Yeah.
Hey, by the way, Jim, Lagunitas. That's my IPA.
Nice.
Lagunitas tonight out of Petaluma, California. Yeah.
Yes.
Here's the Lagunitas. I love the Lagunitas. Good stuff. Well, Tom, it's an absolute pleasure hearing from you.
All right, guys.
Yeah, anytime. Just stop on by.
Yeah,
You got
anytime.
All right.
Literally.
All right.
Thanks, Tom.
Take care.
Tom.
All right.
Hope to
Have
see
a
you
good
soon,
one.
buddy.
Good evening.
Yep.
There's
Take
a great
care.
Tom
Bye.
You're Senior on FoosTalk Live, helping us wrap this one up. Guys, any parting shots? Jim?
Yeah, can you tell that Tom Yor's done a little commentary? I mean, he came on and he was solid. What a breath of, how did Clay put it? What a sight for sore ears.
Yes.
Because Tom Yor came on and I said,
breath of fresh sound.
things are normal again. It's back to normalcy. And Tom's always, of course, great, great foosball man, one of the great foosball men in the country. Tony Bacon, interesting little roller coaster ride with Tony for sure.
Oh, we had a tour. Let's put it that way. Our own mini tour with Tony Bacon. But yeah. Mark, any parting shots?
Just want to thank Tom Yor for coming in and being the statesman he is, just like Jim said.
Yes.
And it was a great tail end to the end of the show. And thanks, Tony, for your short stay. We ran out of time, but here we are.
Yeah.
Time's relative.
Hey, join us next week, guys. Big announcement. Next Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern time here at on FoosTalk Live. Some big news coming, folks.
Yeah. And Clay, anything else you'd like to add to the stats here?
Oh, no, not really. Just glad that I'm here and you guys are thankful for me and all that good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Tom wouldn't have been able to make it in if I didn't go unlock the door and let him in.
Darn
So
straight.
just all credit to me as
Yes,
always.
sir.
And
Good
that's
job.
pretty much it.
Yeah.
What was the final total? Seven F-bombs tonight?
Let me look at it. No, it wasn't 7. Jim,
6.
This is
Six.
no, it was no. It was. I can say them all. I have them written all down if you'd like. It's
Okay.
Yep.
Let's go. He muted himself.
Yep.
We better get out of
All
here.
right,
We better get out of here. Hey,
Catch you
see
later,
you next week, everybody.
FoosTalk Live is a product of Foosball Radio and Inside Foos TV. All rights reserved. Our sincere thanks to 518 Prince, Foosball Clubs USA, Foosballers the Movie, and the United States Table Soccer Organization. Join us next Sunday for another episode of FoosTalk Live. In the meantime,
We'll see you foozin'.